Welcome to the Intentional Health for Women podcast. I'm your host, Garrett GQ Query. This podcast is dedicated to developing intentional health for women. Former 400-pound fat man turned health and fitness professional, specializing in women's health. In this podcast, you will find over a decade of experience in the health and fitness industry, serving women to become their most intentional self through strength training, nutrition, and lifestyle practices. Each week, we will dive into a variety of different topics, ranging from interviews with women leading the way in the health and fitness industry, client case studies throughout the years, myth busting, social media trends, female hormones, gut health, and so much more. We are not normal. We are intentional. Welcome to another episode of the Intentional Health for Women podcast. I'm your host, Garrett GQ Query, and today...
You always do that?
Yeah,
it was like, you throwing that at me to see if I'll laugh? Okay.
No, it was a nickname given to me in high school, and then I did like corporate America for 5 years. I was 400 pounds.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, I was a big boy.
Oh my God. Pictures.
I always dressed up to try to kind of hide that. Like I was like, well, if I'm going to be a fat slob, I'm going to
look good.
I'm
going to be a good looking fat
And
slob.
so I got the nickname GQ because of my initials, and I got it 2 separate times. So it's always stuck.
That's cute.
Okay,
carry on with your intro. I don't
it's fine.
Welcome to having me as a guest. So.
Today we are joined by Lindsey, a.k.a. the Patriot Barbie. She also has her own nickname.
You didn't laugh at mine
though. So Lindsey comes. So I actually started following Lindsey probably about 5 years ago. I had moved to Scottsdale, Arizona, and when I first got out here, I was out here for about 6 months, was trying to basically start my business back again from scratch. I had been personal training at that point for 4 years, moved out here, tried to start it from scratch, and was having a rough go. Mm-hmm. I actually got screwed over by the gym that I was working at. He collected rent and shut down his gym 6 days later.
Oh my gosh. The business world. It's great. So, and you were trying to like rebuild clientele too, like a whole new demographic, people that don't even know you.
Yep.
Yeah, it's hard.
Launching small group training.
Yeah.
Versus like one-to-one training, stuff like that. And then the serving job that I had while I was like, trying to make ends meet and build everything, they shut down.
Now, are they shutting down on their own for their own personal reasons, or are they shutting down because of 2020?
2020.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So the 2020, everything pops off. Everything's, so gym shuts down.
Yep.
The major corporation that I was working for shuts down, like completely shuts down. And it was eerie because it was like in the Scottsdale quarter. And I remember like they basically donated like all the food in the coolers to us staff.
Oh my gosh.
And so like we went in and you're in the Scottsdale quarter and it's just empty.
It's like I Am Legend.
Yes.
Like a zombie.
100%.
Yeah.
Like absolutely. So we're in there and we get all the things and like I'm just panicking. A friend from back home had just moved out here not long before and he was in landscaping, essential business.
Yeah. Yep.
So I started landscaping for a couple of weeks, and while I actually enjoyed being outside, I was like looking at my paycheck and I'm like, this doesn't even cover my bills.
Oh.
So
like,
then
fun,
I like,
but not functional.
Then I Instacarted for like 8 weeks, and I was making bank at the time. Due to like Instacart was like pretty much brand new.
Yeah. Oh, that like
2020, it blew up.
Because you don't want to go to the store if you're afraid everyone's sick. They're not standing 6 feet apart. They're not following the arrows.
Yeah.
I better just get it delivered.
And then I hear about Self-Made Scottsdale. Self-Made Scottsdale opens the door and they're like, nope, and that's when, like it was, I found you, I found like Ian out in New Jersey, right? Like all of these.
Wait, what is Self-Made Scottsdale?
It's a private training facility.
Okay.
And they were one of the main gyms out here
and
that
they
just
stayed
said
open.
And that just said stayed open.
Good.
And rocked out. And that's when I found like your account originally. So take us back to 2020.
Relive it. Okay. I want to touch really quick on the fact that landscaping was essential. I think that's hilarious because I'm like, is it? Like if your grass grows too long, whose life is threatened? Like if your trees don't get planted, whose life is threatened? That's what I love about that whole scamdemic, which is the government deciding who was and was not essential. And like Home Depot was essential. I'm like, but why? If I don't redo my bathroom, like what's going to happen if I don't, again, landscape my yard?
Yeah.
And I've always maintained this. I was a hairstylist, as you know, and we owned a gym.
Yep.
And 4 tanning salons in Oregon. Now, I would say that the gym was essential. I would argue that to the max, that like people's health, if it was a health crisis, that going to the gym would have been the number one thing to be open. But as a hairstylist, I was like, I understand that you getting your hair cut and you getting your extensions redone, I understand that that's not essential. I really do. Like, I'm not going to pretend that getting your hair done is essential. But my income as a hairstylist was essential. And that's the argument I will continue to make, is that everyone's job was essential because they needed that money to live their life, to provide for their family.
Yeah.
And the government was not providing it in the way that they said that they would. Not that we want that anyway. So, all right. So March 23rd. So almost 5 years ago. Yep. Okay. Exactly.
Yeah.
Is when I think the nation as a whole shut down. But that's the date that I remember in Oregon we shut down. I had just had my third baby, March 6th. So he was a couple weeks old. I was on maternity leave. And so I was already off work. So when they said, everybody shut down, I was like, I'm not working anyway. Like, I'm already home. But then it was, if you recall, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. I don't know if every state was saying that, but Oregon was saying that.
Oh, yeah.
2 weeks to flatten the curve.
2 weeks.
To flatten the curve. And I remember thinking, okay, so let me just preface by saying I was not political back then. Right. And I wasn't really like following Jesus closely. So I wasn't really spiritual either. So my critical mind was like, I find it funny that the government says they can control a virus, like an unseen, unknown, invisible threat. You are telling us that you have a strategy to control it. I think that's hilarious that people would believe that. Yeah. And I wasn't even a critical thinker back then. I was just like, that's really dumb that people think that. Yeah. But I was like, whatever, I'm on maternity leave. So 2 weeks, I can do 2 weeks. And then it was 3 weeks. And I was like, all right, extra time with my baby. This is a gift, right? This is a blessing. Another week. Okay. And this is so hard to believe, but no one was reopening. I mean, I don't know who remembers what, but nobody else reopened. And at 6 weeks, which was May 2nd, I was like, I'm going back to work. Yep. Like the government cannot continue we're going to be $200,000 in debt. We still had to pay all the rents on all of our businesses, the gym, the 4 tanning salons, and my salon. We still had to pay the credit cards that were linked and the business loans that were linked with those businesses. The government was paying our employees unemployment, but they weren't giving us anything. If they did give us PPP loans, they said you had to use it to pay your rent or pay your employees. So I'm like, wait, pay the employees that are already getting paid for not doing anything, or pay the rent on a building we can't use. But how am I supposed to feed my family? Like, where's that money coming from? Not that I want it from the government. You know what I want? I want to go back to work. Yeah. I want to be able to work. I want my freedom. Yeah. So at 6 weeks, I reopened, and it was after Shelley Luther in Dallas, Texas. She was my inspiration. She's the one that ended up getting arrested because she refused to apologize for reopening. And then me. So I was probably like the second or third in America, which I don't know how I like got to be this person. I just kind of was like, you know what? I think everyone agrees with me. We all need to work. I'm going to reopen. I'm just going to do it. And the government can essentially they can suck it. Like I'm doing it. I need to. And, it, as you know, turned into like a global news story.
Yeah. Well, that whole situation, like it was really funny is for a lot of people, it ruined their life.
Oh yeah.
2020 completely dismantled so many lives.
Yes. And I hesitate to say that I'm one of them. I would not say that I'm one of them.
But for some of us.
But people that like their kids couldn't go to school and they committed suicide because of the isolation. Yeah. Women who had spent, not that I endorse spending $50,000 on a wedding, but they spent thousands and thousands on a wedding and could never get married. They graduated college, which is like their dream, and they didn't get to walk. people didn't get to see their loved ones dying. Could you imagine? I didn't get to spend any time with my mom. She died in an accident. I don't know how your mom died.
Stroke.
Did you get those last minutes with her, or did she die suddenly?
I did.
Good.
Which was funny because unfortunately my mom was sick for 5 years. After the first year, I refused. I would not go to the hospital.
Interesting.
I would not see her.
Do you regret that?
No, because I saw her the last couple weeks. Like something
made you go.
Yep.
Interesting. So I didn't get the last I didn't get to say my goodbyes. I didn't get to apologize for life things. I didn't get to have closure. Right. And I was forsaken that opportunity just because of life, and that's how it is. And it was an accident and whatever. But if you were to know that your mom had stroked and was in the hospital and the doctor said she is going to die in 24 hours and you're not allowed in, and you had spent all that time saying, I'm not going to go, I'm not going to go. And then the moment that you knew you needed to be there, they wouldn't allow it. I cannot imagine having to come to peace with that kind of anger that some people had to from 2020. Like not being able to say goodbye to loved ones. I don't want people to be mad that my stupid salon shut down. I don't want people to be mad that their kids didn't get to go to school or that they were even forced to choose between work or taking their kids to school. I want people to be mad that the government took the precious, precious moments away from certain people dying, and they had to die alone.
Yep.
That's my biggest fear, is dying alone.
My grandfather, I think probably one of the most frustrating parts about that situation was he lived in fear the final 9 months of his life.
During the pandemic?
And we lost him in November of 2020 to pneumonia.
Oh my gosh. I'm surprised they didn't label it COVID.
To pneumonia.
Yeah.
So he lived in fear, wore a mask, avoided all these things because, especially that generation, they all watch the news.
Yep.
Because it's what they grew up on. And we ended up he had to go through that.
Yeah. And that's another thing that we don't even, that's not a tangible, markable situation, right? Or I'm sorry, ideology. We can benchmark. Someone died in the hospital all by themselves and the family was not allowed. But can we ever count the amount of people that lived in complete paranoia for how long and what it did to them and what it did to their lives? Can we benchmark what it did to their lives for the government to utilize the media and weaponize it to say, you should be so terrified. Stay in your house. Don't leave. Sanitize your groceries that get delivered. I had a nurse friend that was following my story. And when I reopened and I said I was going back to the salon, she sent me this text and said, Lindsey, I understand why you're doing what you're doing, but as a nurse, please hear me out. When you come home from the salon, get out of your car, take everything with you, put it on a plastic sheet. Don't go in the house. Don't touch your children. Don't let them come in the garage. Put all your clothes in a bag, seal it, take it straight to the laundry, wash it. Get in the shower immediately. Don't touch your children. Don't touch Scott. Get in the shower, take a hot shower, wash your hair, wash everything twice. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, am I crazy or is that crazy? If I thought it was that scary, honey, I wouldn't be going to work. The difference between you and I is that I am not scared. I don't believe the media. I don't believe the lies. I don't see people dropping dead. I don't see it. I don't know what you're seeing besides propaganda. And I will say that the nurses were fed situations that would enact their fear as well.
Yeah. 100%.
Multiple nurses.
Yeah. I was actually just telling them this. It's funny. So I'm very into functional health. It is my business. I specialize in women's health, gut, hormones, autoimmune conditions, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gone even deeper down the rabbit hole of like immune system and like immune pathways. And well, you can actually get stuck in immune pathways. I have a tendency to get stuck in a specific immune pathway and my viral load. So you actually have a viral load, right? So like every virus that you've ever had, Epstein-Barr, all of these things, like you essentially never clear them. Like they're just like you basically like they just keep going. And if you have a high enough viral load and you're stuck in a specific immune pathway, you can be more susceptible to being sick. Well, I was able to push myself out of that a couple of years ago and I avoided being sick for almost 2 years, like completely.
Awesome.
Last August, like this most recent August 2024, I got smoked by one of these wonderful super viruses and was sick for 4 weeks and took 4 weeks to recover.
Wow.
I never fully recovered and I have been sick multiple times, including Sunday before last, I just got sick again. And I'm finally like, as you can kind of hear, like I still sound phlegmy, like day to day sleep, like sleep metrics, all that, everything's seemingly back to normal. I can train and function. And but the last 6 months, when I finally treated my thyroid and was in a better place, as far as that, like I have been on top of the world for almost a year.
Yeah.
Like feeling the best I've felt in 8 years. And then all of a sudden in like October, November, December, leading up the last now it's almost 6 months. I've been just like sleeping longer, depressed, like anxious, not being able to complete normal tasks. And as soon as I got sick again, like thankfully, fortunately, I have a coach, like in the best coaches have coaches. And he pointed out, he's like, dude, like, yeah, your immune system's screwed again. Like we need to fix this. And so thankfully, like I'm on the mend and I'm on the way out of it. But like it all of a sudden it just like clicked and it all made sense. And all that to be said, like the reason I kind of correlate that to what you're talking about is like, I've dealt with COVID multiple times.
In yourself.
And here I am.
Yeah.
Alive and well.
Yeah.
Functioning.
Yeah.
Not dead. Like with a compromised immune system.
Right. Well, and we want to go like full conspiracy, which is actually probably not that radical right now.
Right.
But these two nurses, so I specifically had two nurses in my life that were terrified of what I was doing. You're going to bring this home to your kids. You're all going to die. And I was like, we are the healthiest family you'll ever meet. My kids never get sick. I've never had the flu in my entire life. We're like super healthy. They were so scared and they would come to me with these stories of, well, I had this patient that came in this day and we had her on a ventilator by this day. And like now we're finding out, even those nurses are saying, the hospital was mistreating people. So like they were actually killing people. COVID wasn't. It was their treatment. Nurse whistleblower Jody O'Malley. This is all she talks about. She was a whistleblower with James O'Keefe, Project Veritas in 2020. And she said, COVID is not killing these people. The hospital protocols are, and I can prove it. Yeah. And she proved it. And now both of these, well, one of them I don't speak to anymore because the crazy one that was likely out the tarp got real crazy. The other one has actually since said, I am so sorry for not supporting you. Like I see now that this didn't work and the mask didn't work and there was propaganda. And it's wild to see it all come out now and to think, there was a point, I almost lost it. I opened up against the lockdowns.
Yeah.
So statistically, I'm one of the first people who faced COVID head on, took clients, interacted with people, mask free, touched everything, didn't 6 foot distance, never followed any of the rules.
Yep.
So I should have been the first one to die. One of the first to die.
Yeah.
I have never gotten COVID to this day that I'm aware of, except one time I had a headache and I had just had an eye surgery. So I was like, oh man, this is painful. Worst headache I've ever had in my life. Woke up the next day, it was gone. 6 weeks later, I didn't have smell. And I was like, was that headache my COVID? I don't know.
Yeah.
I also just had eye surgery.
Because everybody experiences the symptoms differently, seemingly.
Yeah. But if I had COVID, and it makes no sense, I defied the lockdowns. Me and my family should have been the first family to die on the streets.
Yep.
But this whole entire time, never once have I had COVID that I can record.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's science to me.
And what was weird for me is like, so when I moved my business to self-made, it was May of 2020, and my business like popped off in July of 2020.
Yeah, people were recognizing.
I went from May all the way until like November of 2020 before getting sick, spending 5 months in like a private facility that was crawling like to the point of capacity, like hundreds and hundreds of people flowing in and out of this facility.
Yeah.
Just fine.
Yep.
Something I want to wrap that point on is this is like you have a youngest kid who's like 5 now. How old are your older kids? And I'm sure that they are doing fine, but how are you seeing it impact your older kids as friends? What we've just been through, like the last 5 years, how are you seeing it like impact their friends and their acquaintances at school and like their mental health and well-being of going through that, of being locked down, of not having vital relationships?
Right. So Trigger was, he's 11 now, so he would have been about 6. And Oakley would have been 3. And baby Ranger was 6 weeks old.
Yeah.
Now they are 5, 8, and 11.
Yep.
But during this time, oh man, what a show it was. I remember we were getting ready to move to Arizona. I mean, so when I opened up against the lockdowns, that was May 5th is when I officially reopened. And by July, so 2 months later, by July, all of my businesses had been canceled and ruined. So like within 60 days, we were deciding to move to Arizona because we had lost everything. And not to the government, to cancel culture, who literally would make memes out of my face. They called me the COVID killer. Eventually, I don't know if you know this part, but eventually BLM said, when they started rioting for George Floyd, said, when you go to burn down businesses, start with Glamour Salon and kick Lindsey Graham's ass. And everyone shared that with me. And I was like, why me? Like, what does this have to do? What? How do you go from like, I opened my salon for freedom to like, go assault this woman and burn her business down? And I was like, wait, how did this happen? So I did a call to arms and 400 people showed up outside my salon with guns and was like, you're not going to assault this woman. You're not going to hurt her business. We do not agree. And so then I got really canceled. Then I got labeled a white supremacist, a Nazi, like they were graffitiing my salon Nazi. Like it escalated so quickly, all because I didn't want my salon burnt down. And so we got canceled.
Yeah. Lost
everything, like had to sell our house, that beautiful SUV that I was talking about years ago, like had to sell that, moved to Arizona, ended up being the biggest blessing of our life. But in that process, the schools in Oregon were closed down anyway. So our kids were home. This was about 6 weeks of like lockdown.
Yeah.
They were not loving it. We were deciding to move to Arizona and they were doing online school, which was a complete and utter joke. I mean, such a joke. So the only child I had in school was my 6-year-old in school.
Yeah.
But when we moved here to Arizona, we found a school that allowed in person. So thank you, Lord, that my kids did not experience like a drastic halting of their daily life, halting of their traditions and their everyday tasks to a radical isolation, because the baby was a baby and my 3-year-old was home every day anyway. She did go to daycare, I think 2 or 3 days a week. And then she was just home, but she found that to be like, yay, I don't have to go to daycare. I get to hang out with mommy and the new baby. And then Trigger was 6 and he was the only one. I think that would have been, kindergarten, maybe 1st grade. So he kind of was like, yay, I'm off school. Like they didn't, like, thank God they were protected. I feel so passionately and so empathetic for, I'm serious. Like, think about like a single mom. Okay. And this is why I say my story is nothing compared to a single mom who has, let's say, 2 kids and she takes her kids to school and then she goes to work. And that is what they have to do because she has to go to work. She's a single mom and she has to provide for these children. Yep. Now they can't go to school. Yep. What does she do? She cannot put them in daycare. Daycares aren't open. She has to decide, do I leave my children at home alone? Let's say they're 6 and 4. Mm-hmm. Do I leave them at home alone to go to work because I need to work to put food on the table? Yeah. Or do I not go to work? I'm probably going to lose my job and get fired. I'm also not going to make any money. So how do I feed these children that are now home with me? Yeah. The situation, the predicament that the government put those moms in, those dads, it makes me irate. And I actually don't know how they did it. I don't know which moms chose to leave children home alone dangerously because they had to. Yeah. But the fact that the government forced that decision on them and forced their children to be in a situation with a parent that had to decide, do I leave you at home or go to work, or do I stay home and then I don't have any money? That should infuriate everyone. Those are the stories that we should be the most mad about.
You faced some pretty intense threats from CPS even.
Mm-hmm. That was what made my story go most global. So when I opened up my salon, it was every state agency that came after me. You're going to be fined $50,000 a day by Oregon Health Authority. We're going to give you a Class C misdemeanor and throw you in jail. We're going to kick you out of your building because you're violating the government. So you're violating your lease. We're going to take your hairstylist license away. That was also Oregon Health Authority because you're not following protocol, which, by the way, was not true. It was not in protocol.
No.
Now we're going to take your business license away from the state of Oregon because you're not following protocol. And then the last straw was, and I feel like I'm missing something. There was another threat in there somewhere. But, we're going to kick you out of your building. City of Salem owned the building that I rented. I was the perfect tenant, but they said, we're going to kick you out because you're not following. I think I did mention that.
Yeah.
The last straw was CPS, Child Protective Services, knocked on my door. They wanted to interview me privately, my husband privately. Oakley was able to be back in daycare by then because she was not home. Baby was home and Trigger was home. And they wanted to interview Trigger privately, which I found out was illegal later. They would not let me in the room while they privately interviewed my 6-year-old. And then they wanted to interview Oakley privately. But luckily by then I had retained an attorney and I was like, you can kiss my butt. I'm not talking to you anymore. They went so far as to open our cupboards, check our fridge, none of the false, reported accusations had anything to do with anything. It was literally she's creating an unsafe home for her children. He wanted to check my baby's diaper because there had been a false accusation that I didn't change my baby's diaper and he had diaper rash. This is all coming during the time of a pandemic when no one was coming over to people's houses. So who's in my house looking at my baby's diaper? Yeah. It was just clear that the government or someone had fabricated allegations against me to be able to come in and threaten me. And it was you're not listening when we say we're going to throw you in jail or arrest you or give you a Class C misdemeanor or fine you. Maybe what if we take your kids? Will that make you sit down and shut up? And it was so grossly tyrannical. I can talk about it now, but I'm telling you, in the moment the guy left his car, he looked at our whole house. He interviewed us. We were the perfect family, right? Nothing was wrong. Yeah. He said, I need to go make a phone call. He went out to his car, made a phone call, came back and he goes, here's information for you. And it was an informational sheet on what to do if the government takes your children away from you. That was the threat. After a complete 2-hour interrogation, here's your information if you need to get an attorney because we may take your children away. That's what blew up the whole global story. People were like, she's doing freaking hair and you're threatening to take her children away. Is there no line the government won't cross to threaten people to comply? And that's all it was compliance, right? Yeah. Because as we sit there and talk about Home Depot being open, Walmart being open, landscapers going to work, I was doing hair. That's not an astronomical offense. It was the fact that I was empowering other people to think critically and consider standing up for their freedoms. And they did not like that.
Of course not.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure you're aware. I listen to a lot of Andy Frisella, have for many years. And repeatedly, you know, he talks about, he's like, if the men in our country would have just stood up more, if there was more of us that stood up, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, and, you know, like that's something for me, like, you know, we talked a little bit about, you know, you asked me if I'm a man of faith, and like, I've always, you know, I grew up in the church, was confirmed in the church, went periodically throughout my 20s. In my 20s, I bartended a lot, right? So like very challenging to make it to church, like, you know, going to bed at 4:00 in the morning and even making it to a 10 a.m. service is a feat in itself. And over the years spent out here, like I've grown in my faith, and, you know, I've found Pastor Mark Driscoll's church, Trinity Church, and real men. I've been a part of that for, you know, 2 years now, 2 full years. And, you know, his whole tagline is building men up to bless women and children.
That is a great motto.
It's a great motto. And I think it's, you know, it's funny is, while the issues that we are talking about today are very prevalent and we still have a long ways to go, is like, we are seeing a massive, massive shift in culture, both from men and women, men wanting to step up, wanting to be providers, wanting to do these roles and lead.
Yeah.
And women who actually want to be led. Yes.
Well, and I think the difference, I think that started because the culture shifted too far the other way.
Yeah.
More women, you know, and I'm guilty of believing this, that being a boss babe is fulfilling, right? I'm very guilty. I just told you I was the breadwinner for most of our marriage.
Yeah.
And leading other women to believe it is more valuable and more fulfilling and more purposeful to go and work in corporate America and show those guys that we can do it and have a fulfilling, profitable financial portfolio or career is more fulfilling than having children. Children are a burden. They will get in the way of your dreams and your goals and your career. And I don't understand why we couldn't find a harmonious balance where I can say you can be an entrepreneurial mom and you can want a career, but it doesn't have to be forsaking children. And you can have children and also do a job at home. And that's where I'm at right now. But women who latched onto the feminist movement and just took it so radical that like, abort your children, they are a burden, go get a career, has led to women going and doing that and then realizing that is not what it's all cut out to be. You guys lied. Like, I've got a 6-figure job and I am empty inside. And you know what would fill that hole? The Lord, first of all, but then reproducing and having children, because they are more joy than you could ever put into words, right? And when those women started speaking out, like myself, hey, did it, like fell into the boss babe, you know, like I'm telling you, it's not as awesome as you think. Now I'm coming out and I'm using my voice, not just politically and spiritually, but to say, women, if I can encourage you to do one thing in life, it is not pursue a career. It is have children. And so that's leading men to start appreciating that those women exist. And I want to care for a woman like that. I want to be a father and a husband to a woman like that. And that there's not one size fits all. It's stupid to say that a woman in a career shouldn't be in a career. But it's just, if you can't have kids and you choose career, that's incredible. But they pushed so far that this was the only way to be happy is for men, you to step down and let her be the breadwinner and let her make a lot of money. That's the best way. And if you don't let your woman do that, you are a monster. And now we're pushing back against that whole narrative.
There's extremes that go on both ends. There's a content creator. She's like a men's advocate, right? Like, advocates.
Is it Billy?
Emily King.
Okay, no, different girl.
You know, creates content about like what men are dealing with in our, you know, as things are shifting. Like, what are we dealing with? What does dating look like? Why are like, she made a poll, and she has like hundreds of thousands of followers. She made a poll not too long ago, and it was like, are you single? Are you as a men, are you single waiting for a unicorn to fall into your lap? Are you single? You don't care anymore. Like you're done. Or are you taken? 46% of hundreds of thousands of vote said single waiting for a unicorn, or single just don't care.
Mm.
There was only 12% of hundreds of thousands of men that voted single and like actually like pursuing dating.
Interesting. I can imagine. I would not want to be single in this day and age. I'm sorry. But I would also not love to be a single man, because guess what? Another study just done that I stumbled upon today. 1 in 10 women, we'll use that term lightly, it's ages 18 to 24. That's what they're looking at.
Okay.
1 in 10 of them have an OnlyFans. 1 in 10. 1 in 10 women for a living have decided to objectify themselves, to be basically like a self-maintained porn star, a pimp-free porn star. Yeah. So like a single man in this culture right now, I can't even imagine going on a date and going, first of all, a couple things. Are you actually a biological female? Let's start there, because that's a genuine concern. And B, do you have an OnlyFans? All right, now let's just go on to the rest of the stuff that's very, very important. But those two things we've never had to worry about those before. Yeah. Or you guys have never.
The other, there was another one that I'll never forget, to your point of, being a boss babe. There was a video that she'd like stitched, and there was this girl, she's like, I bought boss babe culture hook, line, and sinker at 27. Like, from the sounds of it, she had went through what a lot of us go through, some like traumatic dating experiences, etc. Used that as fuel to the fire and just like bought boss babe culture. She's like, cool, I'm going to go do this on my own. By the age of 33, she had done all of it, was making a high salary, and she woke up one day and she was like, yep, got lied to. Shit. Want to be a mom. Yep. Want to make some sourdough.
Now I'm 33.
And now I'm 33.
And now the good men are all married. Yep. I mean, that's really what sucks. It's like, it's one thing to tell a lie that might consume someone's year or 2 years of their life, but to tell a lie to women where they take their kind of their prime years.
Yeah.
Those are the prime years. And I hate to be sounding too traditional. Look at me. I'm obviously not traditional, but you take those prime years where it used to be like you would find a great man, fall in love, get married, start having children. That's when you look your best. That's when you are learning who you are. And now you've taken all those years and taken them away from her so she could build a career that maybe she would actually have to completely leave behind, potentially, if she decided she could find a good man to get married and have kids. Yeah. Sad. It's a lie that robs them of potentially their entire future. I hate to say that because my husband and I didn't get married till I was in my late 20s. And I didn't even start having kids till I was, I'm gonna have to do the math right here on air, because I'm 42 now. My littlest is 6. I had my last one at like 39. Yeah. Well, how old did I just say I was?
That's pretty normal though. Like you said, you got married in your late 20s. You and your husband were probably married, maybe traveled a little bit, like built a life for yourself. Enjoying marriage
for a couple years. Yeah.
And then had children at, if you're 42, you would have been 34 when you had your son, or 33, somewhere in there.
Sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah. So I started having kids late. I consider that late, but I guess maybe not.
But no, it's not. The funny thing was, somebody told me the other day, the average age of marriage in America right now is 38 years old.
Whoa. Now, is that counting first and second marriages, or just,
I think first.
Wow. Interesting. You know why? It's because of the boss babe culture. It's changed everything for men. Men can't pursue you if you're at a 9 to 5. You're not out there for men to pursue. They go do their boss babe thing. And when it's done, they're like, oh, time to look for a man. I've built my empire. It makes total sense. But how interesting, because that's going to domino into other things, like women not being able to give birth. Yeah. They say that, what did they say? 35 is geriatric?
Yeah.
Which is insane. I had 2 of my kids way after 35.
So to your point, but like you were married and leading up to those things.
Right.
I'll be 35 in 2 months. I'm single. I'll be 35 in 2 months. I'm single. If I date someone around my age, that basically, like, it has to be
couple
like
years to date, year to get engaged and plan a wedding. Now she's almost 40 and you're like, let's have kids. And she's like, I'm ready to retire. Yeah. It's alarming. It's a whole domino effect, like affecting. And I'm happy to say that it all is to blame on the feminist culture. It's completely all to blame on the feminist culture. There's feminism that was completely warranted, like our right to vote. Okay. Yeah. Totally. Our right to drive, like our right to buy property.
Your right to have your own bank account. Like,
yes. Then there's the extreme feminism that turned, and I can even understand feminism that says, if you want to go work, right? Yeah. Of course, I don't believe in the 50s where the man works and the woman is forced to stay home. Of course, I don't believe in that. No. I think there's joy in that for some people. There's joy in that for me right now. But to say that it's either that way or this way, and there's no in between is just crazy. But it's the radical feminism that says, honey, the only success that you need to search for is a career, not a good husband. If you find a good husband, he oppresses you and he wants you to stay home. He's oppressing you. If you find a good husband and he wants you to have babies, he's oppressing you. Yeah. Like that extremism is what's causing all of this problem for you.
We spoke about this off air before the episode started, is like the loss of our moms. Mm-hmm. And that situation and also like numerous others, like it was funny. It's like my dad, he kind of messed up. He, growing up, he said all the time, he's like, I wouldn't have a kid in today's society and culture.
Interesting.
I wouldn't have a kid.
And that was how long ago?
I wouldn't have a kid. He's like, I wouldn't have a kid. And that impacted both me and my sister. Mm-hmm. There was many years where I was just like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And during a breathwork session back in December, like I really finally like let go of a lot of like the mom stuff. Mm-hmm. And what has been going for me now is just like, all of my best friends, like all of my best male friends, they're all married. Every single one of them but one has a daughter under 2 years old, including my amazing like niece / goddaughter, like my best friend. We've been best friends since I was 11 years old. She's 9 months this month.
Wow.
And I just found out my roommate that I like moved out here with when I first moved out here, him and his wife have been married for like 18 months and they're pregnant. And it haunts me.
Yeah.
Daily. Like getting to see families, and I'm just like, people don't get it.
Yeah.
Because it's like I sit here and like I'm, podcast, building a career, and it's like I have a dog, but that's it.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think people realize that men like you exist. Like, especially feminist women. They don't realize this hurts men too. Like there are men out there that were born naturally to do what men do. Provide, protect, get married, be a father. Like it is instinctual. It is natural. It's biological. Okay. It is not, I want to say it's not a choice. Like it's no. God. That's how God created us. Go forth and reproduce, multiply. And they don't realize that there are men out there who are being harmed by their radical feminism. That there are men now that are aging and going, all I want is a good woman. And I want to get married. I want to settle down. I want to create my bloodline. I want to have a legacy. All men would agree that their legacy is their children. It's so important to them. It carries them on. And they don't realize that there are men who are in pain because of their ideology.
Because it's like, it goes back to what I shared about that poll. The majority of that poll, like that 46%, was single and they're just done.
Yeah.
There's so many men out there that are just like, they've had a successful career, they own a home, they have money in the bank, and they just like, they're just done. They don't want to deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like funny is like, I'm a part of that men's group, and right, like I have a specific table that I sit at my men's group. I don't know how aware you are of like what Real Men is, but like Real Men is, there's 600 men every Tuesday night.
I did not know there was that
600 men every single Tuesday night.
Crazy. Oh, good on Mark Driscoll. That's incredible.
And like sitting around a table, and like, it's, you know, like my table lead the other day, like this came up as a topic of discussion, like, you know, hey, how are you, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, he's like, are you putting yourself out there? And I was like, yeah, like I'm a social person. He's like, well, are you on dating sites? I'm like, absolutely not.
I wondered.
Like dating sites are a nightmare.
I believe that.
An absolute nightmare.
Have you tried it? No.
We've done it. We've done it. Circling back, at what point you mentioned you weren't really a woman of faith?
Huh?
What point did you reach out to your faith and realize like, hey, like I need this to move forward into this next season?
Well, it was a moment that I was forced into, and I'm really, really thankful for that moment because I was raised in the church. I was raised to believe in Jesus. I can quote scripture, and I know the stories of the Bible and all that stuff, right? And it is true that if you raise your children that way, that it will eventually come back. In my 20s, I went totally crazy and did a lot of really radical stuff that took me away from the Lord, and came back. And now, you know, let's say it's 2020 and I'm doing hair, making a lot of money. I'm just kind of lukewarm. Living out my faith is not a priority. I would call myself a Christian, but didn't spend time in the Word, didn't pray, you know, didn't worship, none of that stuff. And then in 2020, when we lost everything, I want really your listeners and you to understand the income. You know, I was making $250,000 a year. My husband was making money running our tanning salons.
And back in 2020, that's you're doing pretty solid.
Yeah.
Life's pretty okay.
Yeah. We just built a custom home in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
I had a brand new SUV because I just had my third baby, and I was like, I'm getting myself an SUV, the first one. It was the first new car I'd ever bought in my life by myself. Like, you know, daddy co-signed on a Hyundai when I was, 20 or something.
Sure.
This was my first, like, I've earned this, and I'm going to go buy a new car.
Yeah.
My hair salon was at the peak of its ability. Like, I had 25 rooms. I had 25 renters. Like, there was nowhere else to expand. We were like living our best life. Okay. Mm-hmm. When we got canceled in Oregon, all my stylists walked out on me. So I had to close my salon, leave furniture behind, like close. Yeah. Couldn't sell it. I just put $100,000 into it in that new location the year before. Had to walk away from that salon. We had to sell my husband's gym to our business partner for like bottom dollar just to get out of the company because people were canceling their gym membership saying the owner's wife is a white supremacist. The tanning salons took a hit. We had to sell all of those. Ended up closing one of them too, just closing it. Had to sell our custom home that we just built. Took our whole family and just left, okay? In that moment, when I realized everything I'd ever worked for 20 years, all the blood, sweat, and tears, like I broke my nose remodeling one of my salons. I laid all the flooring. I painted. I installed cabinetry. I electrocuted myself hanging lights. Like I worked hard for my businesses.
Yeah.
Every penny I'd ever invested was my own. Like never had investors or anything. Like when I say that I worked hard, I was always working hard. I was 5 months pregnant with Trigger, my first son, and I was laying flooring in my salon when I expanded. And people would just be like, you're pregnant. And I'm like, I can't stop. This is my livelihood.
Yep.
I lost all of that when I got canceled. And I sat in my car, my brand new SUV, crying. And I told the Lord, I believe that you are the God that I was raised on, that you love me, that you have good plans for me, and that you don't do things to harm me. So when I sit here and I recognize that you have taken everything I've worked for 20 years, I have to leave my home state where I grew up, My kids have to leave their friends. We have to leave our friends. We have to sell this beautiful home that we built for 2 years. When I look at all of that and recognize that you are not blessing me in this moment, you're taking something from me, I still trust you. I still believe that you have something better for me, that you are going to prosper me, and that you have a plan that is greater. Mm-hmm. And that is when real faith became a part of my life. Not being able to praise the Lord when he saved me from a drug addiction in my 20s. And he said, you're done. And I quit meth, cold turkey. Of course I can praise the Lord in that moment. He blessed me. He saved me. But in a moment where he was taking everything from me and I didn't know why, when you still say, I trust you, that is real faith.
We just wrapped the 10. Mark did a series on for Real Men's the story of Joseph. Mm-hmm. And he talked last night about how God does not do evil, but he can use evil for good. Mm-hmm. When evil is good, like when evil is coming against us.
Yep.
Something that really stood out to me and kind of a part of why I reached out, and we've kind of dabbled around this topic, is your husband, you said, is, really that traditional man, right? He puts himself last in all things.
Yep.
He was driving around a beater SUV.
Talking started with like a 19 something.
19 something.
Not even 2000.
Yeah. 19 something, right?
Yeah.
Running a contracting business.
Yep.
That catapulted him into who he is today, and being that breadwinner for the family. I guess, share a little bit about that, that situation, because it was just in that time, over the last couple of years when I read that, I was like, yes.
Yeah, the dynamic, and this is part of what I think God's doing in our lives. This is why he took everything from us in 2020 to put me on a new path. Not only is a faith-based influencer and all those things, but also to change our family dynamic. What would my kids be like today if we had continued to live a life where mommy was working from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 4 days a week, wasn't cooking them dinner, wasn't picking them up, wasn't doing their homework with them, wasn't spending time with them, got home tired, cranky, hungry, and put them to bed. That's it. We did vacations and we did weekend trips and things like that, but I was really checked out as a mom. I love my kids. I've always loved my kids.
Yeah.
But I was totally still buying into it's more important that I go and I make this money so that we can have this lavish lifestyle than I was being content and being in peace, just knowing that if I'm a good mom, that is all the accolade I need, right? When my kids look at me and say, you're the best mommy ever, that's where my pride is now. And the way that my husband and I were living in Oregon was that he was still running our tanning salons, but he was home to run those from home. So he could pick up the kids and he could make them dinner and he could have them ready for bed by the time I got home. Yeah. And I felt like the boss babe. And you can imagine how that kind of shifts in a marriage. When you are the one that feels like you're the one working hard, you're the one bringing home the dough, that kind of means I'm the one in control. And that's probably why I always got a new vehicle when I wanted, because I would always be like, well, I make the money, so I'll do with it what I want. And I don't remember having that really negative, authoritative attitude, but you can't help but probably spiritually feel it when it's happening. So when we moved to Arizona, I had lost my entire livelihood, just like he had. And we were trying to reinvent ourselves, and we didn't have any job promises or security. It was a very fearful time of our life, very fearful. And I didn't want to go back to the salon because I'd already built an empire for 20 years. I didn't want to start all over. There was no interest at all. And God was calling me in other directions anyway, and I could feel it. So what happened was, and there's so much deep stuff with our lives, but God had prepared him to be a contractor. He could watch a YouTube video and wire a house. It's crazy. So he fell into, well, I'm going to just do remodel jobs. I'll start there and see what happens just to make some income. Well, it turns out he's very good at it. He studied for the exam, passed, got his contractor license, and he fell into accidentally the role of like, well, since you're home, because you don't have a job, I'm going to go to work. And I'm like, I got the kids. And before you knew it, I was like, I am a stay-at-home mom. I like it. And that was like a blessing, such a blessing for us to kind of fall into more traditional roles. And again, not saying it's one size fits all, but for us, it's been incredible. And I realize that there is a reason that God intended it that way. There is a reason that God made men a certain way and women a certain way. And I find more joy in being home with my children and cooking them good meals and helping with their homework and being present and being available than I do going and doing someone's hair and making money.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So to wrap this episode, everybody gets asked the same question.
Ooh, okay.
How are you living intentionally as we step into this next season of life?
I am intentionally trying to listen to the word of God. Like, what is his purpose for me? Because as you've heard this whole episode, my way was cool, but his way is better. It's always better. And every time I try to do things my way, I rob myself of what he has for me. So I'm intentionally moving forward this year with, I only want what the Lord has for me. And I just pray for that discernment.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you. Where can we find you?
PatriotBarbie.com or on Instagram at the.patriot.barbie.
Awesome. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
If this episode brought you value, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. We are not normal. We are intentional.